Welcome to We Weren't Supposed to Exist. Conversations about belonging, meaning making, and the ecology of human beings. Hi, everybody. Welcome to We Weren't Supposed to Exist. I'm your podcast host, Sher Griffin. I am a PhD student studying late identified autistic women and identity development. And I have a special guest on our podcast today, Annalise Gonzalez. And I met Annalise where I meet a lot of people in just random places, but I was doing a talk for cultural autism studies at Yale. And for our listeners out there, if you aren't aware of CASY, CASY, or Cultural Autism Studies at Yale, you can find them on Facebook, and they do wonderful, I think, weekly presentations and talks all around cultural autism. So I did that talk a couple months ago, and me and Annalise connected after that talk, and we've connected across some other platforms, and we've had an opportunity to meet each other briefly until I had a emergency pipe break in my house, and we had to cut our conversation short. And so I invited her onto the podcast. So welcome, Annalise. So happy you're here.
I'm thrilled to be here.
Annalise is also a late discovered ADHDer, neurocomplex human, and so we're going to have a really fun conversation today. I already know this because our 30-minute conversation was really fun, and we had to it was like, no, I don't want to cut it off. But I was in crisis mode at that point. So, but yeah, so I open Annalise for my listeners, I open our podcast with one really just simple question. And it's just, what does Gestalt language processing mean to you, Annalise?
So first of all, I love that you're opening with a phrase that contains a word I struggle with. So I've noticed through my lifetime, and I'll admit at first I thought it was me intentionally dumbing myself down for the people that I worked with, but have come to realize that there are just words I cannot pronounce in my head or out loud. And Gestalt, I want to say salt. Salt.
We could call it G-Salt. Let's just call it G-Salt from now on.
Gestalt, that was one of them. So I'm actually new to the phrase, and I've been trying to ask my father. So he just turned 92. So so some memories of when I was a child are getting a little fuzzy. But I was trying to ask him recently, hey, did I speak in full sentences, or was I your, the traditional is what I'm going to call it, mama, dada, right? Like words and then created phrases. And he said, you know what? He said, I do remember you using sentences um, to some effect, and that they were a lot of times from TV shows or especially songs,
Mm-hmm.
like song lyrics that I would repeat that I felt were apparently appropriate for the situation. I still do that, by the way. Song lyrics constantly going up here. And so
Mm-hmm.
I'll spit out song lyrics, or if someone says something close to one, I'm singing the tune in my head. He said, you were the child that while your brothers were playing, you sat in the corner of the sandbox reading the dictionary.
Ha ha ha. That's awesome.
And I thought that was fascinating because, right, again, it's interesting to me that I have difficulty pronouncing words because as a child, I remember reading the dictionary, and I participated in spelling bees all of the time because
Mm-hmm.
I to be able to spell difficult words.
Mm-hmm.
I just cannot pronounce most of them. And so
Yeah.
It's been an interesting exploration learning about Gestalts and right and how different people process language as a child
Hmm.
or how they start speaking or write in these different ways. So yeah, I mean, pretty limited view, but
I think you have a pretty good view. Gosh, I resonate with so much of that. Yes, I have pronuncia pronunci there pronunciation issues as well, and also was hyperlexic as a kid. Just really fascinated with language, fascinated with reading, fascinating with stories. All of these things, and I had to do the same thing. It was mostly with my mom before she passed away, but I was like, when I was learning about Gestalt language processing, I was like, it's so hard to to go back that far. That's pretty early childhood development, right? And um, it started with my kids because they didn't start speaking. One of my sons didn't start speaking until his third birthday. I have twins, and he started speaking in full sentences. It went from like pretty much nothing to full sentences, and then he translated for his brother for almost 6 months, which is just fascinating to me. And we had no idea about any of this stuff at the time, so we were just like, whoa, we just have, like we got a weird family, and so, yeah, that was really fascinating to me. And so I was asking those kinds of questions about myself. And my mom was like, she just really remembered that I was very articulate as a kid and couldn't really remember the like actual learning process of language. I think were you identified as a gifted kid too? Is that part of your story?
so my teachers identified me as one.
Yeah.
My dad doesn't remember any of that part of my education.
Hmm. Yeah, I think that that's like an interesting intersection because, I mean, I don't know if, you could say all Gestalt language processors. I think it's just, I think it's an interesting intersection, but not necessarily, they both things have to be true at the same time, but they often are. And I think that's often why a lot of us get missed in the autism space, in the different ways of learning space, because um, we are being perceived one way, right? Like being perceived as maybe more advanced in some areas, but we're actually not learning. And that's the part that I find really fascinating is I don't believe it's like a delay. I mean, it's a delay in comparison to if you were
Right.
somebody who learned or whose mind actually processed that way, but it doesn't process that way. So you can't really call it a delay. I love how like Jamie Horwitz talks a lot about this uh, in her work, but like how it isn't a stair step like sequential process of learning language to begin with. And so the tools that we try and understand that in children and Gestalt processors or Gestalt learners just fundamentally aren't built for it, right? Which I just find interesting. But
I just lost what I was going to say. This happens a lot, by the way. So forgetting, right, there'll be something on my mind, but then I'll get so wrapped up in, or my mind will derail. I don't know if you experience that, but my mind is constantly processing things. It's taking words, it's taking names, right? So as you're speaking, it's like holding onto these things and swirling them around for use for later. And
hmm.
um, I used to, so before I knew I was autistic, I'm a huge BBC Sherlock fan.
Ah.
And that series and the way that they did it and the way that Benedict Cumberbatch portrayed Sherlock really resonated with me. I felt a deep connection to that character. And I've always loved Arthur Conan Doyle's stories. I've always loved the Sherlock stories, but this was for me someone bringing it to life. And I really latched onto his ideas of a mind palace. And
Oh,
I
yeah.
used to describe my mind that way to people who couldn't understand. How can you learn things so quickly? How can you master subjects? How can you retain information? How are you so good at Jeopardy? Right. And the only response I could come up with was that I had a mind palace and things were filed away and would be pulled out when I needed them. And
Yeah.
I've noticed recently that now that I'm unmasking, I do this. I pull things out of my brain as I'm talking,
Yeah.
or you'll see my fingers doing this because I'm processing.
Yes.
It's like I'm typing in a way. I'm not really sure, but I'm processing.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and it's been fascinating to learn about my brain and the way that I think and understanding why I was able to do all the things I was able to do in my professional career, especially.
Yeah.
Um, and then on the same token, right, finding out I'm autistic, it being the reason that I kind of got booted out and lost my career.
Mm-hmm.
Mm. So yeah, so this journey has been a really fascinating one. So so sorry for forgetting what I was going
That's
to.
okay. Like that's what this space is about. I do the same thing. Like you'll see, it's like it's like I call it like buffering, right? Where I'm like, oh wait. And then sometimes it's like I lose it in the buffer, or whatever it might be. Um, but I know I completely understand what you're saying. And I mean, I had a couple things that came up. Like I was like, ooh, I want to pull on that string. I want to pull on that thread. I have to like when I'm doing these podcasts, I have to like write little things down. So I'm like, I can come back to that, otherwise it's gonna get lost in our mind in our combined mind palace, because that's what we're doing. We're doing a combined mind palace for our listeners. But the mind body connection is what I connected to and what you were saying. The movement, like I masked that so hard because I am very expressive. I'm a very expressive person, and I talk with my hands. I move, I point to things but like what I'm even pointing to, right? Like and, but I think it's true. I think that I do a lot of research, and so um, this idea of like embodied cognition, right? Like and I'm not a somatic therapist. This isn't my expertise, but and I'm very cross-disciplinary and very, like it's yeah, I have the mind palace of things. And so this is like the one that comes up. And so I'd love to have like a somatic practitioner, someone who's really deep into this work on the podcast so I could get more into this. But I think there is just this, and I don't think it's like just Gestalt language processors or just autistic people or just, I think it's humans that require movement to communicate, that require movement to connect with one another. And I think neuronormativity, our cultural kind of obsession with professionalism, with put your hands underneath your legs, don't move too much in your chair at school, like this idea that movement isn't part of learning is wrong. Just straight up.
Yeah, no, I remember it. So I joined the group through the Cultural Autism Studies at Yale. I joined the new Phenomenology group. By the way, we would love to have you join us if you ever can. But the first meeting we had, I want to say there were four of us, and for the first couple of months, it was this core of four people, and over this last month, it's doubled. Actually, it's more than doubled now, I think. But that very first meeting, we talked about, obviously, are you comfortable on camera? You don't have to have your camera on, right? Going through all that because that makes a huge difference for people who are autistic.
Yeah.
Are you comfortable on camera? Do you need to stem and are you uncomfortable or comfortable doing that in front of people? And someone brought up in that first meeting about how that if the others in the group would not be distracted by their stemming out loud, then they would love to be able to turn their camera on because they normally feel they have to have it off.
Mm.
And I was like, no, please turn it on. Please turn it on because I'm working hard to drop those masks and I'm learning my physical manifestations, right? Like that processing thing was new for me. When that started, I was like, I kind of noticed that I was doing it, but it wasn't until I stopped speaking that I was like, what was I just doing? And I was letting myself be in the flow and be in the moment. And I realize when I see others stem out loud, that's what I love to call it, stemming out loud. When I see others stem, it gives me permission, if you will,
Mm,
to do the same. And
mm,
so there are times I've noticed, especially in that meeting, when a certain person is speaking, I'll start rocking
yeah.
because their voice cues safety in me, safety in,
Yeah.
yeah, I'm feeling this. I feel what you're saying, right? And I'm in this flow state with you. And there's a level of comfort and safety in that.
Oh my gosh, yes. Do you just see my whole body relax just by everything about what you just said? It was just like it's like I just moved into your field of meaning making. And to take a step back for just the listeners, to understand like phenomenology, when we talk about phenomenology, when we have conversations, we're talking about like phenomenon. Like there doesn't have to be a why. There doesn't have to be a scientific explanation. There can be, and often is, but sometimes it's kind of multi-directional or multi-model, right? When we
Yeah.
get there, but phenomenology is what we just, me and Annalise just experienced, or I did experienced with Annalise, is like her way of speaking, your tone, your cadence, the way that you just are, the way you move through the world does something to my nervous system. It relaxes me. It makes me feel like I can be me. It doesn't make me feel like I need to hide something or mask something. And that is pretty substantial, right? Like I think it's something that we don't recognize until maybe we start doing this work, right? Like I like to talk about this because I don't know if masking is safe for unmasking is safe for everyone, right? Like that we know that the way that a lot of our systems, our institutions, our structures are currently designed, that safety isn't distributed equally. But if we can find those places, like the phenomenology group, like cultural autism studies at Yale, like we weren't supposed to exist, um, even just like little increments of unmasking, and is really beneficial to your nervous system. Like,
Right. Well, and for me, it's a huge part of that has been, and that's why I love Casey so much, I think, is meeting people like you, um, meeting people like Don Prince Hughes and Chuck Hall and, others in the group. There's, it's been like coming home. It's
yeah,
been like finding the people who understand me without me having to explain myself. And there's beauty in that, right? There's beauty in connection. My I don't know whether to call it a passion project, a legacy project, but that's my drive for finding belonging, not just for myself, but for others. And other people within the autistic community or wider neurodivergent community, and all mankind, because I think we all deserve to feel
yeah.
that we belong.
I think it's a basic human right, personally, to
Absolutely.
belong. We
Yeah.
belong to this earth. I remember, okay. Oh, you kind of opened a little window here.
Oh, going through my head.
It just opened. So I kind of came into the work that I do now, into my master's program in transformative social change. So my master's is transformative social change. My PhD is in transformative social change. We won't go there. We'll have a whole podcast what that means. But the reason why I chose that path, why I pivoted, because
Mhm.
initially when I started this educational journey that I was on, I was thinking clinical psychology. But as I started to do that work, I got addiction counseling credentials. I got a done a I kind of get obsessed with learning, but yeah, it's kind of a thing. And but when I was started to learn about systems and structures, like really deeply understand, I was like, oh hell no, I can't do this. There's no way that I can ethically in my body work in this system, in a clinical system. And so I had to pivot. And in that pivot, I took a year and I took a role at the Oregon Health Authority, and it was systems transformation and alignment, which is fascinating because
Sounds fascinating,
yeah,
actually.
that's because all the words were there. All the words were there, and the actual experience that I had was one of exclusion. That's how I'm just going to wrap. That's the Gestalt is exclusion. So when you're talking about belonging, I came into my transformative social change program studying exclusion, studying why that happens. What is the feedback loop that creates this recursion of exclusion, and how do we interrupt it, right? How do we interrupt it? That was my like initial um research plan. And I mean, I've started to find ways to interrupt it. I think this is one way we interrupt it, one small way, but um I don't know. I see I went off on a tangent there. There was a point to that um because yes, there is something about what exclusion does to our nervous systems, what it does to communities, what it does to system structures, institutions. I mean, we can get all ecological on that. That I truly believe belonging is one of uh, just a basic human need. And I'm more curious because I you study belonging, I study exclusion. Like I want to understand like what are you discovering just in your lived experience? This doesn't have to be like academic in any way whatsoever. Though it can be if that's the route you want to go. But like, what are you learning about belonging? What are the conditions for belonging? Like, what I mean, I just want to hear what you have to say about belonging.
Yeah, so I'm developing this little thing I call the belongingness effect.
Uh-huh.
Essentially, and I'm thinking, maybe grounded theory, or I'm not even sure how it'll be presented. But I set out with the intention to prove a few things in the process. And I'm a Six Sigma green belt with some lean Six Sigma, right? So essentially that just means I'm really into process improvement, how things flow, right? And how to
Mhm.
improve it and simplify things for all those that need to be using the process. And so, and a documentarian, I document things for that purpose. And so I created a process map, if you will, of how it started. And the things I wanted to prove are, and I know some of these things can be controversial, but one, there is no normal, and that can be a whole, discussion on itself, right? There can be a large panel discussion that never ending on how there really is no normal.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, but using different theories to pull in, right? So what is the belongingness effect? Essentially, and it's how my life has worked, that once we find things for ourselves, like so when you find joy for yourself, when you find, if we think of it in simple terms, you find a song that you really love, what do you want to do? You want to share it with other people, right?
And repeat it 1,000 times.
Yeah, repeat it, right? Until everyone around you is like, I'm sick of hearing that song. You're like, but that's beautiful. The beat and the lyrics and the way that it all intertwines. And, I'm just going to throw a shout out to, I'm a huge Taylor Swift fan. I'm just going to throw a shout out to her and her ability to craft music and lyrics that work together. Because I think in music, writing is important to me, and feeling one with music, if you will, is important to me. And her music does that for me.
Yeah.
It's not just the message there, it's the overarching experience that she's built.
Yeah.
Right. So again, if we want to share music with other people because we love it, we want to share joy with other people. When we find belonging for ourselves, so that deep connection, not just with other people, but with yourself, it involves self-acceptance and authenticity.
Mm.
Right. And part of the
Yeah.
journey is building that connection, building relationships of trust, walking alongside others, and building empathy
Hmm.
and understanding and compassion, and reaching this place of non-judgment where we stop othering people.
Yeah.
Right. And when we come to this beautiful place, and part of the process also, and the part that I think I love the most as a storyteller is collecting stories for those that feel they don't have the voice to speak,
Mm.
right? That you're collecting and you're becoming a good steward of these stories. You're holding them and cradling them as your own, with the whole intent of taking everything you've learned on your personal journey and then saying, I've reached this pinnacle. I so desperately want to share it with others, and I want to help you get there too.
Yeah.
And right, so going really quickly back to, you said recursion. I love recursion. It's part of what I've pulled into the belongingness effect, and I used it in the aspect of X equals human.
Mm.
And so a lot of the belongingness effect, there's spirituality, because belonging is a spiritual practice, right?
Mhm.
Um, and then for me, and spirituality is different from religion, but for me, there's also some basic tenets of my religion. And so I took the recursion X is human back to say, if we can all trace back to the first man and woman on this earth, right? And I know people that subscribe to evolution, right, would have different opinions on this. So this is just my personal opinion here that I'm expressing. But if we can all say that we trace it back to the beginning, then doesn't that mean that we were all intentional? The uniqueness that comes through every human being was intentional.
Mm.
Divergence,
Mhm.
form was intentional. It's,
Yeah.
that's my strong belief. And if you look at it that way,
Yeah.
that's why there's no normal. There can be no
Yeah.
normal, because we are each a unique iteration
Hmm.
of what once was.
Yeah.
And if you look at people in that respect, I think othering goes out the door. You start to love and respect and honor people for their uniqueness. And in fact, you seek out that uniqueness. You're looking for connections. What are these things that, right? Like, oh, my brain is alive right now. And it does that when I hear you speak, when I read your words, when speaking to you, like my brain just, it just comes alive. And it's a sensation I wish I could explain. um, it's all tingly. Um, but I think that once you can look at people that way, as unique iterations of the same thing that we are,
Mm. Yeah.
you right as you learn to accept and love yourself and live authentically, how can you not help but to love and accept others?
Yeah. I could go so many different directions.
I
I
know
love
that.
this. It's just beautiful because I feel everything that you're saying more than the words even mean. I mean, they're meaningful words. Don't get me wrong, but I just feel it that it's like it is a place that you get to this people there's throughout history we've had, so many ways that we've explained this, whether that is through, like a religious experience, whether that's through an awakening, whether that's through a challenge, right? Like through a collapse or through a crisis in life. I mean, there's just so many ways that I think people come to this understanding.
Mhm.
Because I do believe it is you come to this understanding. I
Yeah,
think that we're all innately born connected, and then we lose the connection, and then we come back to the connection. And I have so much gratitude for the bad things that happened in my life because they reconnected me, which then reconnected me to the bigger picture, right? To that I am just one drop in the ocean of so much beautiful uniqueness. Each individual human is part of the whole. And when you were talking, I just keep thinking about relationship. My this is my personal philosophy on consciousness, is that it is relational, and that it can't be contained, and that this is what we are doing right now. This is consciousness is me and you having this conversation and opening our minds to possibility and connection and belonging. And so I think about relationship and how that concept, that idea has been so distorted throughout history, and what relationship really means. And we can get metaphysical on that and talk about complexity science and all these things, but we're not going there, guys. We're gonna stay grounded, and we're gonna go in like relationship just between humans, right? The in between, not you did something bad, you're the bad guy, I'm the good guy. It's not that quite that simple when you've been through the process of healing relationship, again, starting with the relationship with yourself. You start to see that. You start to see that this is a flow, not a one-way street.
I love it described that way. When you were talking, it made me think of, I'm not a public speaker. I'm I'm not a people person. I get terrified in front of people, but in my career in adult education, so I was designing and building learning experiences. I always took the approach that I needed to understand from the beginning, which is where I was working, through the end. Like, what was the conclusion? How was it um, accepted by or not accepted by participants? Because I wasn't necessarily the person training. I rarely was in the training room. And so I would intentionally volunteer, one, because I was hoping it would get me out of I'm so terrified to speak in front of people. Um, but two, because I wanted to have that understanding. And so I pushed myself out of my comfort zone. And I ended up in a position where I was training what we would call soft skills,
Mhm.
right? So starting with basic customer service, but then moving into crucial learning topics like crucial conversations,
Mm.
right? And emotional intelligence. So things along those lines. And I would go into sessions and I would bring Kleenex with me. And I would tell people up front, listen, this is what you're going to see today. The first 15 minutes, a terrified human being standing in front of you,
Mm.
sweating like crazy, stumbling over words, right? Voice shaking. But somewhere around 15 to 20 minutes into this, I'm going to hit a flow state. And I'm going to somehow, and I'd be honest, I'd say, I have no idea how this happens, but it happens every session. I will make a connection with at least one person, sometimes multiple people. And that helps me move out of myself and into the content and what I need to convey,
Yeah.
right? So that actual learning and growth can occur.
Yeah.
But it also means that other people in the room will feel that energy, or, I like how you're saying that flow. Um, and again, I would say, I don't know how to explain it, but there's Kleenex around the room. Some of you are going to need it. And it would happen every session. And I remember one session, probably the most beautiful instance of it. And I'm probably going to cry remembering this. I was filling in for somebody. So I remember that drive. It was almost like an hour and a half on the freeway, which makes me on edge. Early morning, a car that I was driving next to literally went up in flames, like flames engulfed it on the freeway, right? So it was already an interesting morning on the way there. And I get there, people file in the class is pretty full, something I'm not used to because the area that I was in north of that was smaller, more rural. And so we'd have fewer people in the class. So this was like 3 times the number of participants that I was used to. And I was coming back for 2 days straight to train them. And when the flow state hit about the time that I thought it would hit. A couple hours into it, an older woman, I say older because like I'm not older, I have issues with age, an older woman who had told me beforehand that she would have to leave early for uh, uh, and a really important doctor's appointment for herself. Um, had right, she stood up and she said, "Do you mind if I say something before I leave?" And I was like, "No, please, please." And she explained that she had come into the room that day, having recently lost her husband, having to take over his dog. And she looked at it as his dog, not hers, because she didn't like the dog.
Mm.
And not long after her husband passed, having no choice but because of health reasons, having to put the dog to sleep, and that she was headed to a medical appointment that could mean literal life or death for her.
Oh, wow.
And she was coming from this place of overwhelming grief and pain, and still trying to process everything that had happened in this short time. And that she was going into this, that she had come into the classroom terrified, thinking the worst was going to happen because the worst had been happening.
Mm.
Right. And so she's pouring tears and I'm pouring tears, and I'm looking around the room and just about everybody's crying at this point. And she said, "I walked in feeling that." She goes, "But I'm walking out." I'm like, she said, "I'm walking out knowing that I'm loved, that whatever happens is okay. If I need to face another trial in life, it's okay." Because, like you said, and this is my little motto, everything we encounter in life, and this isn't original, I stole this from a training. Everything we encounter in life is an opportunity for learning and growth.
Oh, yeah. I love
And she said, "I'm going into this appointment knowing that I'm loved by a group of strangers,
that. Mm.
and that I felt love and understanding, and that I can go into that, and whatever happens in that appointment, I'll know that there's
Yeah.
still a room full of people that love and understand me, even if it was for only a few hours of my existence."
That is
She said,
beautiful.
and that has made all the difference.
It does. Love does make a difference. Oh my gosh. This just opened a little portal. So somebody in one of my posts, oh, it was is for not social media posts, but my we do discussion boards. We do these deep discussion boards within my academic. My people think when I talk about academia, I'm in a really different world of academia, folks. Let me just tell you, it's not traditional academia. But we were talking about. I'm in a course that's transformative and restorative justice, and we're talking about um, uh, pretty vulnerable experiences we've had of harm and repair and these types of things in these discussions. And one of my fellow colleagues, one of my the other students, I won't get into details of what we were talking about because that's what happens in our space happens in our space. But the very last thing he said on his response to me was, "I wonder what would happen if we organized around love instead." That was his line. And I know I was just like, and so I've been sitting with that. The fact that you brought this up, I've been sitting with that since last night. That like that question, and it's sparked this kind of different way of thinking for me just over the last day or so because studying exclusion is hard. Studying harm is really hard. It's really hard on your nervous system. And so, but this also brought up, and I'm just gonna because we're getting close to our hour here, um, but I want to pivot on this to another story similar to yours, but not your story. by any means, because that was just intensely beautiful. But I think that these things happen if we pay attention. They happen more often than we think they do. And so I'm going to just tell a little story about this. So early, while when I was early in my recovery journey, I was doing a lot of group work, right? Like, I mean, I learned very early that connection was really important to healing work, that you needed other people, that you needed community, that you needed a place that just loved you because you were you. And so I was doing that every single day. I was working hard. I was going to work every day. I was juggling so many things at that time. I mean, my life was really challenging. At that period of time, I was, selling assets. I thought I was going to lose my house. I mean, it was just, I was working, 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 and then just going to these meetings. And one of my jobs was doing grocery delivery. And so I had pulled into a Costco parking lot, and I pull in. I had come from a meeting to do my grocery. After the meeting, I'm doing clock on to my grocery delivering job. And I pull into the parking lot and I see this, I kind of come around the corner like this, and this, I'm going to go into the parking spot. I see it. I'm like, oh, yay, and then I see this other woman coming the other direction. So I backed up. I was like, oh, that's hers. Like she was definitely there first. And so I back up and I wave her on and she's like, oh, thank you. And she gets into her car and I go past and I take the next spot a little further down. And I get out of my car, and this woman is running towards me, just like exuberantly running towards me and hugs me. Like just I'm not a hugger. Okay, I'll say that. Like I have such a sensitive nervous system that I do not like people touching me. But it was like I just for whatever reason, I just kind of like absorbed her and and then she pulls back and then her young, maybe, I don't know, teenage daughter kind of comes up behind her and she goes, "You have no idea how much that mattered to me." And then, and she goes, I go, "Well, why don't you tell me?" While we walk to the door. And so we're walking to the Costco front door, and she starts telling me the story that somebody had hacked her bank account and her business bank account. And so she had no money. She had no way to pay rent, and if she did not get a certain amount of money that day to pay her rent, they were going to get evicted. And that she was also doing grocery delivery. We were both doing
Oh,
this during COVID too, so it was stressful time. And that just stuck with me. I was like, I didn't really do anything. I just let you have your parking spot, like it was yours. But it was tiny. And I mean, it made a huge difference for this woman. I mean, it was like, it was the thing that she needed that day with all, I mean, there was other things going on. I mean, she gave me the dump. It was the trauma dump in the Costco parking lot. But it was beautiful. I mean, I will never forget that story. I will never forget that one tiny little thing that I did. Because I could, made that much of a difference to her in that moment. And so, yeah, it's like we get so busy in our day-to-day life that we forget that the little things matter a lot, a lot, a lot. We don't need to solve world peace through, I don't know how we would do that anyways, but it is the little things, it's the moments.
well, I mean, I've been working on solving world peace since the fifth grade, and so
Yeah, me
I don't
too.
know why I'm still so determined to make that happen. Um, I think, carrying on with your story, I think the important thing is it's not only that we don't personally realize what the little things can mean to another person, but we also don't see the ripple effect
Mm,
that those
yeah.
tiny little things can have, right? And so it most likely didn't stop with her.
Mm-mm.
It rippled on, right?
Yeah.
It made little, it's the form in my mind. So when I first heard about penguin pambling,
Oh, yeah.
I thought, oh my goodness, that's like the ripple effect that I'm always talking about with little things,
Hmm.
right? It's those tiny little pebbles, those tiny little things can make such a huge difference to a person
Oh my
and
gosh.
then ripple from there and impact others. And I think I mean, that's beautiful.
Yeah, I agree. I think it brought you were talking about music earlier, and music is great pebbling, right? And I kind of learned this from a friend of mine, Lucy, who was on the podcast. She's also the cover artist of my book. Um, but she does this. She's an amazing pebbler. Like I'll get on threads, and all of a sudden, there'll be a tagged me in a song. It's got a YouTube video with a song, and it makes me it just even if I don't have time to listen to the song, even if I hate the song, whatever. It's the fact that she took a moment to think about me and to tag me on a song. That is so meaningful to me. Those little kinds of things, and I try and do them too. Like I try and do it with my children. Like I send them little videos, like text message videos and things because I'm like, who knows what that might do. And especially I think our younger generations right now need to see that that we are the change, right? Like they need to see that that's normal, actually. Like it's normal to care about people. It's normal to like be nice to strangers. It's normal to put your cart back where it belongs. It's not, like these are like normal things. And it's so much easier to be entitled, to think that, we deserve something more than another person, that I deserved that parking spot because I'm in a hurry or whatever it might be. And I'm guilty of that, like I'm not perfect any sense of the word. Stressed nervous systems do weird things sometimes. And but I think it's like the balance, right? Where that's what I'm learning a lot about studying harm is like we're gonna harm each other. It's gonna happen, right? Like humans harm humans, often more than often
Mhm.
unintentionally, because we just don't know. And especially in digital ecosystems, that's I'm learning so much about how um the complexity of algorithmic environments is like ripe for harm. So, anyways, that kind of went off on a tangent. I don't want to, but
No, well, your
yeah,
focus is on exclusion, right? So it only makes
yeah,
them go places. I mean, I think this is going to be an interesting, right, as you and I build our relationship.
yeah.
To in my mind, I'm picturing this interesting seesaw, if you will, of where there's this finite balance in the middle, right, to where we keep one another balanced. I don't get too much in the clouds
Mhm.
because I need to remember people are being excluded, right? That the whole point of my journey and belongingness is because people are being excluded.
Mhm.
Then, right, if you get, so I would imagine if this were me personally focusing on exclusion so much, I would, I carry the pain of other people and I
Mhm.
would feel that deeply. And so I'll be interested to see, right, like this
Yeah,
little maybe balance that we can create and building one another and building our ideas and our areas of focus through reminding one another what the opposite is.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I love that. And I love that I met you because you did remind me that the what the opposite was, because the work I do does kind of put me in harm's way too, right? It does. And I have to balance that. I have to remember to not get so sucked into the ecosystem because I'm observing, because I'm witnessing, and I witness a lot of pain, that I don't take care of me. That I don't take not just me, but my immediate environment, is what I'm always trying to remind myself, like that I have a body, that I have bodies that depend on me, right? Like there's cats and dogs and kids and family members, that are part of my responsibility, that are part of my ecosystem. And so I have to have some kind of mechanism of detachment for that, which is kind of a spiritual practice. It really is to be able to study this stuff and still keep your sanity. Really, it really is.
Yeah, I can't imagine carrying around. I mean, I carry around my own trauma And I know the weight of that can at times be heavy. And I carry around trauma of others because I feel so deeply. And I can sense things from other people, right, when they're hurt or overwhelmed. And I take that burden on myself automatically. It's not even something I think about anymore. And I'm having to learn to scale that back right. I have a heart and a mind and a body that has been through it all and needs love and protection as well.
Mm.
And so I think finding a balance is essential. And for me, that's meeting people and reading books and right getting different points of view that can help bring balance to things when I'm so hyper focused on, but I need to fix everything first.
Yeah.
I need to fix everyone and everything. And I'm not joking when I say world peace. I mean,
Yeah.
it's
Hey,
it's a theme.
we were socialized very similarly, I think, when it comes to that. Um, you know, the idea for me was always world. I mean, it was always world peace. Like, of course, why not? Why wouldn't we want that? And
Yeah.
even as a child, like my parents have given me a lot of my childhood things. And that's what I wrote about. That's what I was writing in my journals. When I was after I graduated college, my goal was to join the Peace Corps. I had children instead, which is a whole nother form of Peace Corps. But
I love that.
seriously, seriously. Um, but yeah, it is good reminders that being socialized as white women in this society um,
Mhm.
does affect how we view all of these things, right? And it doesn't mean that we need to view them differently. It just means we need to recognize that our perception not is finite, right? It's finite, and um, that is something I have to continually remind myself where my positionality is. Like where am I when I'm studying this thing? What does it mean to study it from what I can see? And what am I not seeing because of who I am and how I was socialized? And I think one of the most difficult things about this work, when I'm helping to open people's eyes to, privilege and oppression and these types of things, is that it's we've been conditioned to also take things personally. Like that's also conditioned into us that everything is individualized. And so then we turn structural awareness into guilt and shame. No, 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 no. Don't do that. That makes you ineffective, very ineffective. So it's such challenging work to bring I always say it's a kaleidoscope for me that I'm just like, here, let's turn it just a bit. Now what do you see? Something totally different, just with that one little twist. Um, yeah. So I'm with you.
I love so as a final note, I love that you mentioned Kaleidoscope. It's been really interesting to me as I meet more people, how many people use or refer to a butterfly,
Mm.
right? And so when I was doing the belongingness effect and trying to create a little logo, I was like, oh, I want to stick a monarch butterfly in there, but one that's got pinks and reds and blues and green, right? Has to have pink. And it wouldn't work. And so I was studying, trying to find another word and learned something new that a group and I don't know if this is just for monarch butterflies, but they're known as a kaleidoscope.
Oh,
So
really?
I've used just a basic kaleidoscope outline that centers itself behind the text
Oh my God, this is fascinating to me.
because I'm so drawn to this idea of butterflies and the freedom and the rebirth, right? And the beauty that they
Mhm.
experience and the joy that they bring and just their lives are so, oh my gosh, I just totally forgot the word, inspirational.
Yeah.
And these tiny little fluttering things. And I don't know why other people are drawn to it. But when I heard kaleidoscope, it was like, I just instinctively knew.
Yeah.
That's because the kaleidoscopes have different meanings as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
Depending, like you said, depending on, just a little turn,
Little twist.
a little twist, and how and changes the view that we see.
Okay, this is a beautiful space to like end the podcast. This went by so fast, by the way, too. I'm looking at the time. I'm like, oh my gosh, we just went there. And yeah, God, oh, I'm gonna now that's where I'm going today. Kaleidoscope butterfly. Whoa, what? Okay. You got some things going moving in my brain.
You have some things
Oh.
going on in mind. Going up here.
Oh, tickling. All right. Well, thank you so much, Annalise. This was so much fun. I'm so happy you came on. And to listeners out there, thank you for listening. And yeah, I never know how to end this. So peace, love, joy,
Belonging.
survival, belonging.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks, Sharon.